The Phoenix Burn. 1. Honey, the AC is busted again. Chloe's voice drifted from the bedroom, laced with a dangerous, syrupy sweetness. I was sprawled on the couch scrolling through TikTok, but her words sent a jolt through me. When the air conditioner died last week, I dragged my feet for 3 days before getting it fixed. As a result, Chloe accidentally tossed my prized collection of mint-condition rookie cards in the trash. I can still picture the look on her face as she said, "Oops, my hand must have slipped." It was a smile so sweet, it looked like it was dripping honey. On it, calling a tech right now. I shot up, my fingers flying across my phone screen. A news alert from CNN popped up at the top. Phoenix temperature shatters all-time record. 118 F. I froze for a second. Wasn't it just 115 yesterday? Chloe wandered over, wearing a light sundress. Her long hair was casually pulled back in a ponytail, revealing the pale skin of her neck. She tilted her head. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I put my phone away and gently squeezed her cheek. "Just thinking my wife is so gorgeous, still looking this fresh in this killer heat." She squinted, a smile playing on her lips as she traced a circle on my chest with her finger. "Nice try. Fix the AC. Now." I swallowed hard. 3 years of marriage had taught me the meaning of that smile. Failed to comply, and I would die a very painful death. The repairman on the phone said he was booked solid. The earliest he could come was the day after tomorrow. I lowered my phone and met Chloe's gaze, which was rapidly losing its warmth. "Babe, stay calm." I took half a step back. "I have an idea." 10 minutes later, we were standing outside a Best Buy with our suitcases. Chloe raised an eyebrow. "A new air conditioner. That's my girl." I snapped my fingers. "And we're grabbing a generator, too." The news said the power grid is strained. "We're probably looking at rolling blackouts." Chloe nodded thoughtfully, then suddenly reached out and twisted my ear. "So you deliberately didn't fix the AC last week, hoping it would die completely, so you could get a new one." "Ow, ow, ow, I swear to God, Chloe, it wasn't that deep." She let go with a huff. "It better not have been." I rubbed my ear, sighing internally. Chloe's intuition was terrifyingly accurate. I did have a little scheme going. The old unit was an energy hog, and a new Energy Star model would save us a ton on the electric bill. But saying that out loud right now would be suicide. The store was a madhouse. I squeezed my way to the appliance section and found most of the AC units were already sold out. "This is the last one. Top rated for energy efficiency, inverter tech, the works," the sales associate said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But installation will take 3 days." 3 days? My eyes went wide. "I'll pay extra for today." "Doesn't matter how much you offer, man. The install crews are swamped," the associate said, lowering his voice. "Honestly, we've already had 5 people sent to the ER for heat stroke today." Chloe suddenly tugged on my sleeve. "Leo, look over there." I followed her gaze and saw a mob of people fighting over generators and bottled water. One guy was pushing 3 shopping carts overflowing with cases of Aquafina toward the checkout line. "Something's not right," Chloe said softly. I pulled out my phone and saw the news alert had exploded. Widespread power outages across the valley. Panic buying empties supermarket shelves. Experts warn, extreme heat wave to continue. "Shit," I swore, turning back to the sales associate. "The AC, a generator, and a water purifier. Whatever I can take with me right now, I'll take it. I'm paying cash." The associate's eyes lit up. "We've got 2 portable generators left in the warehouse, but there's a 30% markup." "Done." Chloe looked at me, surprised. "Where did you get that kind of money?" I grinned. "My secret stash." Her eyes instantly turned dangerous. I quickly added, "It was for your birthday present. This is an emergency." "We'll settle this later," she said, pinching my side before turning to the associate. "Add 2 of those big camping solar panels to the list." By the time we hauled our mountain of gear back to our apartment complex, the power was already out. The elevators were dead. We had to lug everything up 12 flights of stairs. The second we got through the door, I collapsed on the floor like a man who'd just run a marathon. Chloe, however, was buzzing with energy, already unboxing the generator. "Get up. Set up the solar panels on the balcony." "Honey, just let me breathe for a second." She knelt, her face close to mine. Her warm breath tickled my ear. "Leo, you know what I love most about you? My rugged good looks? Your absolute shamelessness." She gave my earlobe a gentle bite. But right now, I need you to be even more shameless. Go get the emergency toolkit out of the fire safety cabinet in the hallway. My eyes widened. That's illegal. Chloe tilted her head, her smile unwavering. So what's it going to be? You want to follow the law? Or do you want to live? An hour later, our living room was a makeshift command center. The generator hummed, powering the new AC unit, which pumped out glorious cold air. The solar panels were charging a row of power banks, and the water purifier was hooked up to the tap. Chloe had even fashioned blackout curtains from our old drapes, bringing the indoor temperature down to a bearable 90 degrees. I lay on the couch, watching Chloe's silhouette as she moved efficiently around the room. I suddenly thought that marrying a paranoid survivalist wasn't all bad. At least when the apocalypse hits, she's got you covered. Leo, Chloe called out, holding up my phone. This thing has been buzzing nonstop. I took it from her and saw our work group chat had exploded. My manager sent a message saying the office AC was fried and everyone was to work from home starting tomorrow. I scrolled down through a torrent of messages. The grocery stores are completely out of bottled water. The light rail is shut down. Hospital ERs are at capacity. I frowned and opened the weather app. The forecast for the next week was a sea of red. Extreme heat warnings with temperatures predicted to break 125 F. This is worse than I thought, I murmured. Chloe sat beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. Scared? With you here? What's there to be scared of? I wrapped my arm around her. If it all goes to hell, so be it. She chuckled. So crass. You love it when I'm crass, I said, leaning in with a smirk. Chloe pushed my face away. Save your energy. If the water gets shut off tomorrow, we'll have to haul it up from the building's main reservoir. I groaned. In this heat, you could always drink my bathwater, she said with a wink. I'll get the buckets. Night fell, the generator's hum becoming a constant white noise. Chloe fell asleep in my arms, her breathing even and slow. I gently stroked her long hair, thinking back to the first time we met 3 years ago. It was at a friend's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman. She wore a pale blue dress and had 2 little dimples when she smiled. I was completely mesmerized and shamelessly asked for her iMessage that night. Looking back now, I realized those dimples weren't filled with honey. They were filled with arsenic. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my neighbor, Pete. Hey, Leo. Heard you guys have a generator. Any chance we could borrow it? My wife is pregnant, and she's really struggling with the heat. I hesitated. The generator was our lifeline, but Pete was a decent guy. Chloe, who I thought was asleep, was awake and staring coldly at my phone screen. No, she said flatly. But she rolled on top of me, pressing a finger to my lips. Leo, in a disaster, the most dangerous thing isn't the weather. It's people. Today you lend him the generator. Tomorrow someone will come to take it by force. I looked into her deep, unblinking eyes and realized she was probably right. Okay, you win, I said, kissing her finger. But Pete's a good guy. Chloe smiled, a chilling expression that sent a shiver down my spine. Want to bet? If he comes back tomorrow and asks nicely, I'll let you help him. But if he gets nasty, she didn't finish, but I understood. The next day, the temperature soared to 120 F. We kept the curtains drawn, relying on the generator to keep us alive. Suddenly, a frantic pounding echoed from our front door. Leo, open up. I know you're in there. It was Pete's voice, but it had lost all its usual friendliness. Chloe shot me a look that said, I told you so. I went to the door and peered through the peephole. Pete and 2 of his buddies were standing outside, their faces flushed and their eyes wild. Pete, what's up? I asked through the door. Cut the crap. You're the only ones in the whole building with power. My wife is about to have a heat stroke. You have to give us the generator. I glanced back at Chloe. She was in the kitchen, sharpening a butcher knife. The sound was crisp and unnervingly musical. Sorry, man. We need it ourselves, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Fuck you, you're just gonna watch us die? Pete started kicking the door. I'll break this damn thing down. Sweat beaded on my forehead, and not from the heat. Just then, Chloe walked over, the freshly sharpened knife in her hand. She gave me a sweet smile. Open the door. WH what? I said, open the door. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were as cold as ice. My hand trembling, I unlocked the door. The moment Pete started to barge in, he froze. Chloe was standing there, holding the gleaming knife and smiling radiantly. "Hey, Pete, come on in for a drink." Pete was paralyzed. His two friends took a step back. We just get lost," Chloe said, her smile never wavering. "Or I'll chop you up and feed you to the dogs." Pete's face went pale. He turned and fled. Chloe shut the door and embedded the knife into the coffee table with a thud. The blade quivered. "See, what did I tell you?" She tilted her head, looking at me. "Still think I'm just being paranoid?" I swallowed hard. "No, you're a total badass." Chloe laughed, a genuine, throaty laugh, and threw her arms around me. "Now that's the Leo, the first love. Absolutely shameless." I held her tight, thinking this whole survival thing was going to be a lot more intense than the heat wave. By evening, the water supply to the building was cut off completely. Chloe and I dragged buckets down to the central water tank in the basement. On the way, we saw a few neighbors physically fighting over the last few gallons. We quietly found another route. In the stairwell on the way back up, Chloe suddenly stopped. "Leo, if this is really the end of the world, what's your biggest regret?" I thought for a moment. "Not stocking up on more Coke." She rolled her eyes. "I'm being serious." I looked at her, at the stray hairs plastered to her temples with sweat, and my own expression turned serious. "Probably not meeting you sooner." Chloe stared at me for a second, then broke into a grin that was pure, unadulterated joy. "Smooth." We hauled the water back to our apartment, the generator's hum sounding like a post-apocalyptic symphony. Chloe was in the kitchen making ramen while I sat by the window, watching the city descend further into chaos. My phone had no signal anymore. The world felt like it had shrunk to the size of our small apartment. The ramen was ready. Chloe brought the bowls over and said suddenly, "Leo, there's something I've been hiding from you." My heart clenched. "What?" She pulled a key from her pocket. "I have a fully stocked, safe house in the Superstition Mountains. 3 years' worth of supplies." My jaw dropped. "When did you?" "Before we got married," she said nonchalantly. "It was originally my contingency plan in case you cheated on me." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "So now, we're moving there tomorrow." She fed me a bite of ramen. "You're my husband, after all. I have to protect you." I looked at her gentle smile and suddenly thought that maybe this apocalypse wouldn't be so bad after all. At 5 in the morning, the temperature outside had already climbed to 110° F. I knelt on the balcony, watching Chloe stuff the last few bottles of water into a backpack. She moved with a practiced efficiency, as if she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. "Where exactly is this safe house?" I asked, wiping sweat from my forehead. Without looking up, she said, "The Superstition Mountains." I nearly choked. "That's over 15 miles away, in this heat. Which is why we're leaving now." She finally looked up and gave me that dangerously sweet smile. "Unless you'd rather stay here and die." I shut my mouth. The first rule of my marriage to Chloe was, don't argue with Chloe. The woman could argue that the sky was green and somehow make you believe it. She tossed me a heavy backpack. "Check it. Food, water, medical supplies, weapons." I unzipped the pack. Lying on top was a large kitchen knife, its blade glinting in the morning light. Beneath it were neatly packed energy bars, chocolate, antibiotics, and my eyes landed on a small, square box. "Condoms." I raised an eyebrow. "Babe, it's the end of the world, and you're thinking about this." Chloe walked over, tracing a circle on my chest with her finger. "Leo, do you know what the body loses most in extreme heat?" "Water. Electrolytes." She picked up one of the foil packets. "These are filled with salt and sugar. In an emergency, they can replenish what you've lost." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "Unless you were hoping for another use." I swallowed hard. "Electrolytes are great. Love electrolytes." Chloe laughed and gave me a quick kiss before turning to check on the generator. I watched her slender back, a mix of emotions churning inside me. This woman was planning our apocalyptic survival while simultaneously flirting with me. We took one last look around the apartment. The generator was off, the AC unit a useless piece of plastic. The thermometer on the wall read 106 degrees Fahrenheit indoors. It felt like a sauna. "Let's go," Chloe said, her voice suddenly soft. "Don't look back. We're not coming back." I was taken aback. It was the first time she'd shown any hint of sadness. I reached out to hold her, but she had already turned toward the door, her back ramrod straight. The hallway was even hotter than our apartment. We moved quietly down the stairs, trying not to alert any neighbors. On the 7th floor, I heard the faint sound of a baby crying from Pete's apartment, a weak noise like a kitten's mewl. I hesitated. Chloe immediately looked back, her eyes a clear warning. "Just a peek," I whispered. "Maybe we can help." Chloe sighed, but gestured for me to be quick. I pushed Pete's door open a crack. In the living room, his wife was slumped on the couch, her face flushed, a clear sign of severe heat stroke. The baby wailed beside her. Pete was nowhere in sight. "Water," the woman rasped, reaching a weak hand toward me. I hesitated. We didn't have much water to spare, but Chloe suddenly pushed past me and walked straight to the woman. I thought she was going to help, but then I saw her take a water bottle from her pack, twist it open, and pour just a tiny bit onto the woman's lips. "Just enough to wet your lips." Chloe's voice was ice cold. "Any more, and you'll just throw it up." The woman looked at her with despair. Chloe was unmoved. She turned and pulled me away. At the door, she tossed a small packet of suppositories onto the floor. "For the fever. They work faster than pills." As we continued down the stairs, I couldn't help but ask, "Why not give her the whole bottle?" Chloe didn't break her stride. "First, we can't spare it. Second, she won't last 3 days anyway. Third," she finally turned to look at me, "compassion will get us killed." I was speechless. This version of Chloe was terrifyingly logical. The complex courtyard was eerily silent. A few bodies lay in the parched landscaping, already beginning to smell. We stuck to the shadows, avoiding direct sunlight. Chloe pulled 2 umbrellas from her pack. "Use this. Sun protection." As I took the umbrella, I noticed a bruise on her wrist. "Where did you get that?" Chloe glanced down. "Bumped it moving the generator last night," she said dismissively. I didn't press. 3 years of marriage had taught me when to keep my mouth shut. The streets were worse than I had imagined. A 7-Eleven had been looted, its windows shattered. A body was slumped against an ATM, a useless debit card still clutched in its hand. The heat was accelerating decomposition, and the air was thick with a sweet, nauseating stench. "This way," Chloe said, pulling me into a narrow alley. It was hotter in the alley, but at least it was empty. We moved like rats through the city's shadows. Sweat soaked through our clothes, sticking to our skin. With every step, it felt like the soles of our shoes were melting. 2 hours later, we collapsed under a highway overpass to rest. I chugged half a bottle of water, but my throat still felt like it was on fire. Chloe only took a small sip, then pulled out a thermometer and stuck it under my arm. 101.3. Mild heat stroke. She frowned, pulling a small bottle of bitter herbs from her pack. "Drink this." I drank it obediently, the bitter taste making me grimace. Chloe suddenly leaned in and licked the corner of my mouth. "Your reward," she whispered with a wink. My heart skipped a beat. Damn this woman, turning even the apocalypse into foreplay. After a short rest, we pushed on. The further we got from the city center, the more horrifying the scenes became. A city bus was overturned on the side of the road, its windows smashed, the people inside looking like baked bread. A couple lay dead on a park bench, embracing, their skin fused together. "Don't look," Chloe said, covering my eyes, but it was too late. Around noon, we were forced to stop. A makeshift barricade blocked the road ahead, manned by several men armed with metal pipes. They were demanding a toll. "No way around it," I said after surveying the area. Chloe narrowed her eyes. "See the one in the red tank top? He's the leader." I nodded. The man in the tank top was sitting under a large patio umbrella, surrounded by a horde of supplies. He was pouring a bottle of precious water over his head, letting it run wastefully onto the ground. "Wasteful," Chloe sneered. "People like that die the fastest." We quietly backed away, trying to find another route. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air. It was a young woman, being dragged by 2 men towards the storefront. "Help me, please," she cried, her voice hoarse. I froze. Chloe grabbed my wrist. "Don't be a hero, Leo." But "You can't save everyone." Chloe's eyes were like chips of ice. "Either she dies, or we all die." I clenched my fists. The woman's cries were like a knife in my gut. Just then, the man in the red tank top stood up and walked toward the store. He said something, and the 2 men reluctantly let the woman go. "Interesting," Chloe murmured. Looks like he has his own set of rules. We took the opportunity to slip around the back of the barricade. Just as we thought we were in the clear, a voice shouted from behind us, "Hey, stop!" A tall, skinny man holding a lead pipe ran toward us. Chloe reacted in a flash, pulling the kitchen knife from her pack and slashing at him. The man, not expecting such a fierce response from a small woman, stumbled backward. "Get lost!" Chloe's voice was arctic. Or the next one goes for your neck. The man hesitated. I seized a moment and pulled out the dull fruit knife I had in my pack. It could barely peel an apple, but it was all about the presentation. "We're just passing through," I said. "We don't want any trouble." The man finally backed off. We walked away quickly, not stopping until we had put several blocks between us. Chloe's breathing was a little ragged, and she rested her forehead on my shoulder. "You okay?" I asked softly. She shook her head, then suddenly laughed. "Leo, you were surprisingly convincing back there. Learn from the best," I said, squeezing her cheek. My own personal knife-wielding Valkyrie. Chloe's laugh was brighter this time, her eyes crinkling into crescents. For that one moment, I almost forgot we were running for our lives. By 3 in the afternoon, the temperature hit a terrifying 124 F. My vision started to blur, and my feet felt like lead. Chloe wasn't doing much better. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. "Just a little further," she said, pointing ahead. "There's a line of trees past that hill. There should be a creek where we can rest." The trees were long dead, but they offered some shade. We stumbled toward the creek bed and froze. The water was gone. The dry, cracked earth was littered with the bloated corpses of animals. "Fuck," I swore. But Chloe walked straight onto the creek bed and knelt in a low-lying spot. She dug away the rocks and gravel, revealing a patch of damp soil. "Dig," she commanded. We took turns digging with our knives and hands for half an hour until a small puddle of muddy water finally seeped through. Chloe pulled out a portable filter and some purification tablets, creating a makeshift water source. "It'll be drinkable in 30 minutes, she said, her face smeared with mud, but her smile was triumphant. I just stared at her, my chest swelling with an emotion I couldn't name. How could this woman still be so beautiful in the middle of all this? While we waited, Chloe took stock of our supplies. We had enough food, but only 2 bottles of water left. "We have to ration this," she said. "We should reach the safe house tomorrow." I nodded. Then a thought occurred to me. "Where did you get all this stuff?" "The filter, the tablets. People don't just have this lying around." Chloe paused what she was doing, then said casually, "I took a wilderness survival course. Before I met you." She looked up, her eyes suddenly dangerous. "What? You don't trust me?" I quickly shook my head. Chloe smiled, satisfied, and leaned in to kiss me. Her lips were chapped but soft, with a faint taste of blood. As dusk fell, the temperature dropped slightly. We started moving again, using the cover of darkness for safety. Chloe took out 2 headlamps from her pack, setting them to their lowest brightness. "To save the batteries," she said. In the moonlight, her profile was like a sculpture, calm and beautiful. I couldn't resist asking, "Why didn't you tell me about the safe house sooner?" Chloe was silent for a moment. "It started as a hobby. It became a habit." She paused, "Kind of like you and your secret stash of cash." I was speechless. This woman knew everything. We decided to spend the night in an abandoned gas station. Chloe meticulously checked every corner for threats before letting me inside. "We'll take shifts sleeping," she said. "I'll take the first watch." I was so exhausted I fell asleep almost instantly. In a half-conscious state, I felt Chloe gently stroking my hair. Her touch was tender, a stark contrast to the fierce survivor she'd been all day. I was jolted awake in the middle of the night by a noise. I opened my eyes to see Chloe holding her knife to the throat of a stranger. The man was on his knees, trembling. "I was just looking for some food," he pleaded. Chloe sneered. "Sneaking in here in the middle of the night, just for food? Try again." The tip of her knife pressed deeper. The truth. The man's eyes darted around. I followed you. I saw you had supplies." I was wide awake now. "We've been followed." Chloe seemed to have expected this. "How many?" Just me." Chloe suddenly dragged the blade across the man's cheek, drawing blood. He cried out in pain. "Last chance." Chloe's voice was a soft, deadly whisper. "How many?" 3. "There are 3 of them. They're waiting outside, the man sobbed. Chloe looked at me, her eyes asking a question. I took a deep breath and nodded. She smiled, then knocked the man unconscious with a swift chop to the neck. Grab your things. We're leaving, Chloe said, already moving. They'll realize something is wrong soon. We slipped out the back door of the gas station. In the moonlight, I could see two figures hiding in the shadows across the road. We'll have to crawl, Chloe whispered, pulling me down. We moved like snakes through the tall, dry grass, silent and unseen. Only when we were far away from the gas station did we stand up and run. After several hundred yards, Chloe stopped and burst out laughing. Wasn't that exciting? She asked, her eyes sparkling. I was still catching my breath. You knew they were following us. Chloe nodded. Since the creek. That water source was too obvious. I was dumbfounded. What on earth was this woman made of? Just before dawn, we finally saw the outline of the Superstition Mountains. Chloe pointed to a hidden cove. It's in there. I was running on fumes, but the end was in sight. Just then, we heard the sound of an engine behind us. A modified pickup truck was tearing up the road. Run, Chloe yelled, pulling me into the tree lane. The truck couldn't follow us into the dense brush, but 4 men armed with various weapons jumped out and gave chase. We ran for our lives, branches whipping at our faces. Suddenly, Chloe stumbled and fell. Twisted my ankle, she said through gritted teeth. Without a second thought, I hoisted her onto my back and kept running. Her breath was hot and ragged in my ear. To the left, there's a cave. We scrambled into the cave, finally shaking our pursuers. It was dark inside, the only sound our own ragged breathing. Chloe slid off my back and immediately wrapped her arms around me, holding on tight. Leo, she said, her voice trembling, if they catch me, you run. Don't look back. My heart seized. Don't be stupid. I'm serious. She looked up, her eyes fierce in the dim light. The coordinates to the safe house are on my phone. The password is your birthday. My throat felt tight. In that moment, the brutal reality of our situation hit me. Chloe, my terrifyingly capable wife, was planning for my survival without her. Forget it, I said, holding her tighter. We get out of this together. Chloe smiled and kissed me softly. Okay. We held each other in silence for a while, until the sounds of our pursuers faded. Chloe checked her ankle. It was badly swollen, but she could still walk on it. We're almost there, she said, pointing ahead. The entrance is hidden in that cove. We moved forward cautiously. As we got closer, my heart began to pound. What would this mysterious safe house look like? After pushing through a thicket of bushes, Chloe stopped. We're here. I looked around. There was nothing but a solid rock face. Chloe just smiled. She walked to the wall of rock, pulled back a curtain of vines, and revealed a hidden electronic keypad. After she entered a code, a section of the rock face slid open silently, revealing a passageway. Welcome home, honey, Chloe said with a tilt of her head. I followed her inside, dumbfounded. The safe house was more like a luxury bunker, solar-powered, climate-controlled, with enough food to last for years, and even a small medical bay. How much did this cost? I stammered. Chloe was examining her ankle. She looked up. My inheritance. It occurred to me then that Chloe never talked about her family, only that her parents had passed away. Clearly, there was more to the story. The moment the heavy door sealed behind us, I collapsed onto a sofa, letting out a long, shuddering breath. Chloe limped over and handed me an ice-cold beer. Apocalypse special, she said with a wink. I took the beer, but then pulled her into my lap. She let out a small yelp, then laughed and settled into my embrace. Leo, she said, her tone suddenly serious, this is just the beginning. I nodded. Outside the reinforced walls, the sun rose again, and the world began to burn. The end was still here, but for now, we were alive, and we were together. Chloe rested her head on my shoulder and began to hum a soft tune. I closed my eyes, feeling her warmth, her presence. This terrifying, brilliant woman was my wife, and she was the best damn thing that ever happened to me, even at the end of the world. 3. I woke up in a strange bed. Sunlight, filtered through some kind of specialized window, filled the room with a soft, cool light. The low hum of an air conditioner confirmed it. This wasn't a dream. We were really in Chloe's safe house. I reached for her, but the space beside me was empty. I shot up. Chloe, In the kitchen, her voice came through a hidden speaker. "Sleep well, honey." That's when I noticed a small camera in the corner of the room, its red light blinking softly. Was Chloe watching me? I got up and found a set of clean clothes laid out for me. They were a perfect fit. Would she know to my size? I walked out of the bedroom and into a hallway. The bunker was even bigger than it seemed last night. Doors lined the corridor, each with a neat label. MED Bay, Armory, Storage. Armory. I pushed the door open and froze. An entire wall was covered with firearms, from handguns to assault rifles, even a few military-grade crossbows. Cabinets below were filled with neatly organized ammunition, labeled by caliber and quantity. "Like it." Chloe's voice behind me made me jump. She was holding a tray with breakfast, smiling as if she were asking if I wanted sugar in my coffee, not showing off her room full of deadly weapons. Is any of this legal?" I asked, my voice dry. Chloe handed me the tray. Who cares about legal anymore? She picked up a pistol, expertly dropping the magazine and checking the chamber. "I'll teach you how to use them." I stared at her fluid, practiced movements, my throat tight. "Chloe, who are you?" She tilted her head, thinking for a moment. "Your wife." She leaned in and gave me a quick peck on the lips. "Eat up. Then I'll give you the grand tour of your new home." Breakfast was scrambled eggs, bacon, and fresh-baked bread with a glass of orange juice. Eating like this during the apocalypse felt like a crime. "How much food is in the freezer?" I asked as I ate. Chloe pulled up a tablet, displaying a detailed inventory. "Frozen goods will last us 3 months. Dry goods, 6. Canned stuff, a year. If we're careful." I whistled. "You're a regular little squirrel." She narrowed her eyes. "What did you call me?" "A goddess." I corrected instantly. "My wife is a goddess." Chloe grunted, then continued the tour. The bunker was about 2,000 square feet, divided into living and functional areas. The most incredible feature was the massive underground cistern that recycled rainwater through a filtration system. "We have enough water for 4 months, Chloe said. "Longer if it ever rains again." The med bay was as well equipped as a small clinic, with everything from suture kits to scalpels, even a dentist's chair. The storage room held not only food, but also crates of vitamins and medical supplies. "How long have you been preparing this?" I had to ask. Chloe, who was checking a bank of security monitors, paused. "Since my parents died." It was the first time she'd ever brought them up on her own. I wanted to ask more, but she had already changed the subject. "Look at this." The command center had a wall of screens showing real-time feed from hidden cameras around the bunker's perimeter. "Those guys from last night are still out there," she said, zooming in on one of the feeds. A few men were skulking at the edge of the tree line, armed. I frowned. "Will they find this place?" "Sooner or later," Chloe said calmly. "Which is why you need to learn how to protect yourself." She dragged me back to the armory, and my lessons began. She covered everything from the mechanics of a handgun to the effective range of a rifle, and even how to properly maintain a knife's edge. I felt like a kindergartner on the first day of school. "Try this one," Chloe said, handing me a compact pistol. I took it, my hands sweating. Chloe came up behind me, her hands covering mine, guiding my aim toward target. "Steady your breathing," she whispered in my ear. "Squeeze the trigger gently, like you're touching me." I almost fired prematurely. This woman couldn't even teach marksmanship without turning it into foreplay. After a few tries, I finally managed to hit the edge of the target. Chloe clapped. "Not bad. Keep practicing." "Where did you learn all this?" I asked the question that had been burning in my mind all morning. Chloe was cleaning her own sidearm. She looked up. "My dad was retired military. He taught me." She paused. "After my mom died, he became paranoid. Always said the world was going to end, and he forced me to learn all these survival skills." I didn't know what to say. Chloe rarely spoke of her past, but every little piece she revealed helped explain the woman she was today. "What happened to him?" I asked softly. "He killed himself," Chloe said, her voice as flat as if she were talking about the weather. "Right after I graduated from college. He left me a lot of money in one message: survive, no matter the cost." I walked over and put my arms around her. She was stiff for a moment, then slowly relaxed, leaning her head on my shoulder. "So I built this place," she said, her voice muffled. "And then I met you." I kissed the top of her head. "I'll help you survive." Chloe looked up, her eyes shining with a startling intensity. "Even if I'm not normal?" Who the hell is normal anymore? I laughed. The world ended, remember? She suddenly kissed me, a fierce, desperate kiss that left me breathless. When we broke apart, she whispered, "Leo, you were the best choice I ever made." That afternoon, Chloe put me on a strict curriculum. Physical training in the morning, weapons practice in the afternoon, and medical skills at night. My protests were quickly silenced when she asked, "Do you want to be a liability?" The physical training was hell. The bunker had a small but well-equipped gym, and Chloe put me through a grueling workout. She, on the other hand, completed a set of pull-ups with effortless grace, the muscles in her back moving smoothly. I thought, "You had an office job." I panted from the treadmill. Chloe, doing push-ups, didn't even look up. "I have a gym membership. 4 times a week." She paused. "It was also a good way to make sure you weren't hitting on the yoga instructors." I nearly fell off the treadmill. This woman went to the gym just to keep tabs on me? Halfway through my workout, an alarm blared. Chloe was on her feet in an instant, sprinting to the command center. The monitors showed 3 men approaching the bunker's perimeter, searching through the brush. "Probably the same crew from last night," Chloe said, switching to a thermal imaging view. "They found our tracks." My heart started pounding. "What do we do?" Chloe thought for a moment. "We watch. If they're just passing through." She didn't finish her sentence. On the screen, one of the men lifted a shovel and started digging. "They're looking for pipes or power lines." Chloe's face hardened. "They're professionals." She quickly typed a command into the console. Outside, a strange, low-humming sound started. The men on the screen immediately became alert, looking around. "Subsonic deterrent," Chloe explained. "It causes dizziness and nausea in humans." Sure enough, the men quickly showed signs of discomfort, stumbling away. But just before he left, one of them looked up, staring directly at the location of the hidden camera, as if he knew he was being watched. "Trouble," Chloe said softly. "They'll be back." After dinner, Chloe insisted on teaching me how to suture a wound. In the med bay, she placed a slab of pork and a suture kit on the table. "Practice with a straight incision first," she said, demonstrating with the precision of a surgeon. When I tried, the needle and thread refused to cooperate, leaving a crooked, messy line of stitches in the pork. Chloe was trying hard not to laugh. "What's so funny?" I snapped, frustrated. "I'm not a med student." Chloe's expression suddenly turned serious. "What if it was me who was hurt? Could you stitch me up?" I froze. The thought of Chloe bleeding sent a sharp pain through my chest. "Again," I said, picking up the needle, my focus absolute this time. After 10 more tries, my stitches finally looked decent. Chloe nodded in satisfaction, and then she sliced her own finger open with the scalpel. "Chloe," I yelled. "Now," she said, holding her bleeding finger out to me. "Practice time is over, doctor." My hands shook as I disinfected and stitched the wound, sweat pouring down my face. Through it all, Chloe just smiled, as if she couldn't feel a thing. "Why would you do that?" I asked when I was done, my voice filled with concern. She stared at her bandaged finger. "To make you remember that in an emergency, staying calm is more important than perfect technique." Later that night, we lay in the master bedroom's large bed. Chloe was curled up in my arms, acting as affectionate as any normal girl. It was hard to reconcile this version of her with the cold-blooded survivalist from earlier. "Leo," she said suddenly, "if one day I'm not myself anymore, will you leave me?" I stroked her hair. "How much more not yourself can you get? You're already certifiably insane." She pinched me, then said softly, "I'm serious. The apocalypse changes people, especially when I have to do certain things." I tilted her face up to look at me. "Chloe, on our wedding day, I promise to stay with you through sickness and health, for richer or poorer." I gave a wry smile. "I don't remember there being an unless the world ends clause." Her eyes welled up, but she quickly blinked the tears away and put on her usual defiant expression. "Oomph. If you ever try to leave, I'll break your legs. And keep me as your pet. And then I'll stitch you back together," she said, making a sewing motion. "That way, you'll be mine forever." We both laughed, but we knew it wasn't really a joke. In this broken world, Chloe's particular brand of insanity might just be our greatest asset. The next morning, the alarm blared again. This time, it was more serious. The same group was back, with more men and several dogs. They have tracking dogs, Chloe said, her face grim as she stared at the monitors. They know someone is here. My heart hammered against my ribs. What do we do? Chloe made a decision instantly. Activate secondary defenses. Go to the armory and get an MP5 and enough ammo. I'm going to set up some perimeter interference. We split up. When I returned, fully armed, Chloe was wearing a strange outfit, a camouflage suit covered in small, mirrored panels, her face painted with camo grease. Optical camouflage suit, she explained. It confuses thermal imaging and the naked eye. She handed me one. Put on. We stood before the monitors like two special ops soldiers, armed to the teeth. The men and their dogs were now within 100 yards of the bunker. They found the entrance, Chloe said, her voice calm, but her knuckles were white as she gripped her weapon. I looked at her determined profile and realized something. This crazy, paranoid woman was protecting our home. She was protecting me. Chloe, I said softly, whatever happens, we face it together. She turned to look at me, her expression softening for a fraction of a second before becoming sharp again. Remember, Leo, if you have to shoot, aim for the center mass. Don't hesitate, and don't say a word. I nodded, my heart pounding like a drum. On the monitor, the group had reached the hidden entrance. Their leader knelt, examining the ground. Chloe pressed a button on the console, and a loud explosion rocked the area outside. The men scattered, diving for cover. Flashbang, Chloe explained. Non-lethal, but it should scare them off. This time, however, it didn't retreat. The leader yelled something, and his men began a systematic, organized search of the area. These aren't just scavengers, Chloe gritted out. They're professionals. Then, the worst-case scenario happened. One of the dogs caught a scent from a ventilation shaft and began barking furiously. Several men immediately converged on the spot. Prepare for contact. Chloe's voice was as cold as the grave. Just as they were about to breach the vent, the sound of engines roared in the distance. A modified tactical truck sped into view, and a dozen armed individuals jumped out, opening fire on the first group. The monitor dissolved into chaos. The newcomers were clearly better organized and quickly neutralized the first group. Then, a chill went down my spine as they began to methodically sweep the entire area. Is that the military? I whispered. Chloe shook her head. Their gear is too varied. Not regular army. She zoomed in on one of the figures. Look at that tattoo. The leader had a prominent snake tattoo on his forearm. Chloe sucked in a sharp breath. Black Mama. They're mercenaries. The mercenaries searched for half an hour before finally stopping near the bunker's entrance. The leader looked around, then slowly raised his head, staring directly at the camera, just like the man from yesterday. He grinned, and though we couldn't hear him, I could read his lips perfectly. Found you. Chloe abruptly cut the feed, plunging the command center into silence. Who are they? I asked, my voice trembling. Chloe's face was pale. The worst kind of people. She shot to her feet. Pack a go bag. We have to be ready to evacuate. Abandon the bunker? I couldn't believe it. There's an emergency exit that leads to the other side of the mountain. Chloe was already stuffing supplies into a backpack. I have an off-road vehicle stashed there. It's enough to get us to the next safe point. I helped her pack weapons and food, my mind reeling. How many more secrets did Chloe have? How many more safe points? The command console suddenly shrieked. Chloe checked the alert, her face growing even paler. They're drilling into the outer wall, trying to get a thermal reading of the inside. We were out of time. Chloe led me to the bedroom, pushed aside the wardrobe, and revealed a hidden door. You go first, she said. I'll cover our escape. I grabbed her hand. We go together. She pulled away, her eyes filled with a terrifying resolve. I have to activate the self-destruct sequence. I can't let them have these resources. Seeing that I was about to argue, she pulled out her pistol and aimed it at me. Leo, that's an order. Go. I had never seen her look like this before, cold, distant, and yet filled with an unshakable determination. In that moment, I finally understood the weight of her father's final words. Survive, no matter the cost. I gritted my teeth and crawled into the dark tunnel. Behind me, Chloe's voice came through my earpiece. Go straight for 200 yards. There's a vehicle at the exit. The key is in the front left wheel well. What about you? I asked, panting. There was a few seconds of silence. I'll catch up. If I don't make it, the coordinates for the next safe house are in the GPS. My heart felt like it was being ripped in two, but I kept crawling. At the end of the tunnel was a metal hatch. I pushed it open and saw a modified SUV, just as she'd said. I had just started the engine when the mountain itself seemed to shake. The bunker had self-destructed. Through the dust and debris, I stared at the tunnel entrance, praying for a familiar figure to emerge. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5. Just as I was about to lose hope, a figure stumbled out of the tunnel mouth. Chloe. She was covered in dirt and soot, but she was alive. I ran to her and held her so tightly I thought I might break her ribs. She coughed and pushed me away. Drive. They'll be on us any second. We sped away on a hidden mountain road. In the rearview mirror, several vehicles were already in pursuit. Chloe checked her weapon, her expression grim. "Welcome to the apocalypse, honey," she said, chambering around. "Now let's teach these sons of bitches what happens when you piss off a woman with nothing left to lose." The SUV bounced violently on the rugged mountain trail. I gripped the steering wheel, my palms slick with sweat. In the rearview mirror, 3 modified pickup trucks were closing in, their occupants sporadically firing at us. "Turn left now," Chloe screamed. I wrenched the wheel, and the SUV nearly rolled. A rocket-propelled grenade streaked past our tail, exploding into a fireball behind us. "Holy shit, they have an RPG?" My voice cracked. Chloe had already rolled down her window and was propped against the doorframe with an assault rifle. Her long hair whipped wildly in the hot wind. "Keep it steady," she yelled, and then opened fire. The sound was deafening. The windshield of the lead truck shattered, and it veered off, crashing into the mountainside. Chloe ducked back inside, her face smudged with gunpowder, her eyes shining with a terrifying light. "Nice shot," I cheered. "Don't celebrate yet," she said calmly, reloading her magazine. "Black Mamba won't give up that easily." As if on cue, the remaining 2 trucks adjusted their course and continued the chase. A man with a snake tattoo leaned out of a window, aiming some kind of device at us. "It's a jammer." Chloe's face went pale. "They're trying to disable the vehicle's electronics." No sooner had she spoken than every light on the dashboard flickered and died. The engine sputtered, and our speed dropped drastically. "An EMP weapon," Chloe gritted out. "These bastards are better equipped than the damn army." I floored the gas pedal, but it was no use. The SUV coasted to a stop. Our pursuers were getting closer, their triumphant, ugly smiles now visible. "Ditch the car," Chloe said instantly. "Grab the essentials. We're heading into the woods." We grabbed our go bags and scrambled out of the SUV, making a break for the dense forest lining the road. We could hear the screech of tires and angry shouts as the mercenaries disembarked behind us. The forest was a sweltering, humid trap. Sweat blurred my vision as we crashed through the undergrowth, branches scratching at our faces. Chloe's ankle, still not fully healed, caused her to limp, but she didn't slow down. "We need to split up," she said suddenly. "You go north, I'll go south. We'll meet at the base of the mountain." "No," I grabbed her hand. "We're staying together." Chloe turned, her expression a complex mix of frustration and something else. "Leo, they're after me. If we split up, at least you can." "Shut up." I cut her off, my voice firmer than I expected. "We live together, or we die together." She stared at me for a moment, then a slow smile spread across her face, that familiar, dangerously possessive smile. "Fine, together it is. But you follow my lead." I nodded. Chloe pulled a small device from her pack, pressed a button, and threw it behind us. Seconds later, a massive bang echoed through the trees, the shockwave sending leaves raining down. "Flashbang and smoke," she explained. "Should buy us some time." We used the confusion to put some distance between us and them. After a while, Chloe pulled me down behind a large boulder, holding a finger to her lips. The sound of footsteps and cursing came from just a few yards away. I held my breath, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Chloe's hand went to the pistol at her hip, her eyes as cold as stone. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my leg. A snake. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. Chloe noticed my pained expression, and her gaze dropped. When she saw the coiled rattlesnake, her eyes widened. Faster than I could blink, She grabbed the snake behind its head, her other hand drawing her combat knife. With a single, silent motion, she severed its head. We waited until the sounds of the mercenaries faded before we moved. Chloe immediately examined the bite on my calf. Diamondback. Venomous. My vision was starting to go dark at the edges. Am I gonna die? Not while I'm here. She efficiently pulled an anti-venom kit from her pack, administered the shot, and then, to my shock, put her mouth over the wound and began sucking out the poisoned blood. I stared at her blood-stained lips, my chest aching. This woman was beautiful even while doing something so gruesome. Can you walk? She asked. I tried to stand, but my leg was completely numb. Not likely. Without another word, Chloe crouched down. Get on. You'll carry me. Your ankle. Less talking, more climbing. I got on her back, amazed at the strength in her small frame. She moved at a steady pace, her breathing as even as if she were out for a stroll. What are you made of? I murmured. Chloe chuckled softly. Special Forces standard training. 30-mile ruck march with a 100-pound pack. You were in the Special Forces? My father was an instructor, she said. He raised me like a son. It was another small piece of her past, offered up in the middle of chaos. I wanted to ask more, but a wave of dizziness washed over me, and my vision began to fade. Stay with me, Leo. Chloe's voice sounded distant. There's an old ranger station up ahead. We can rest there. When I came to, I was lying on a cot. Chloe was standing watch by a window, her silhouette framed by the setting sun. The ranger station was dilapidated, but she had already cleared a space for us. Water. My throat was sandpaper. Chloe was instantly by my side, helping me drink. She touched my forehead. The fever's broken. You're lucky to be alive. I grabbed her hand. The mercs. We lost them for now. Chloe pulled out her tablet and brought up a map. But we need to get out of this area fast. Black Mamba has drones. They'll find us. Watching her operate the military-grade tablet, I finally had to ask, Chloe, how much more is there that you haven't told me? She was silent for a moment. My father wasn't just retired military. He was the lead scientist for the Alpha Project, a program focused on survival in extreme environments. Alpha Project, a holdover from the Cold War, a doomsday prep program. Chloe's eyes seemed to look at something far away. My father believed that global warming would lead to the collapse of civilization. So, he built the safe houses. He trained me. I try to process this. So why is Black Mamba after you? Chloe bit her lip. They want my father's research, specifically his work on atmospheric regulation technology. My eyes widened. Are you saying this goddamn heat wave could be man-made? I don't know for sure. Chloe shook her head. But before he died, my father told me the answers were in Alpha Station. Alpha Station, another safe house, bigger, better equipped. Chloe pointed to a remote location on the map. It's here, about 50 miles from our current position. I whistled. So that's our next destination. Chloe nodded, her expression grim. The journey will be more dangerous. Black Mamba isn't just a group of mercenaries. They're the private army of some major corporation, and they specialize in acquiring doomsday tech. I looked at her serious profile, and for some reason, I smiled. What's so funny? She frowned. My wife is a post-apocalyptic warrior, I said, reaching out to touch her face. And she's gorgeous. I really hit the jackpot. Chloe rolled her eyes, but the corners of her mouth turned up slightly. Idiot. As night fell, we took turns on watch. When it was my turn, Chloe fell asleep, her head on my shoulder. I gently stroked her hair, my mind racing. The woman sleeping peacefully in my arms could field strip a rifle, carry me through a forest, and threaten neighbors with a butcher knife. And now, we were going up against a shadowy organization to find a technology that might save the world. Life was so fucking weird. In the early hours of the morning, the distinct buzz of a drone woke us. Chloe was instantly on her feet. Recon drone, she whispered. They found us. In the distance, we could hear engines. They were closing in. Chloe packed our gear with blinding speed. There's a trail behind the station that leads down into the valley, she said, handing me a pistol. I'll create a diversion. You go first. Not this again, I said, annoyed. We agreed, together. Chloe glared at me. This isn't the time to be a hero. Who the hell is being a hero? I pulled her to me and kissed her hard. I'm your husband. If someone's going to die, it's going to be me protecting you. Chloe froze, then her expression softened. You moron. We slipped out of the station, using the morning mist for cover. The drone circled overhead, but it hadn't spotted us yet. The trail was steep and slippery. Behind us, we heard explosions and shouts from the direction of the ranger station. They're here, Chloe said, picking up the pace. There's a river up ahead. If we can cross it, we should be safe for a while. We stumbled to the riverbank only to find that the rope bridge had been cut, leaving only a few frayed ropes dangling over the raging water below. Can we make it? I asked. Chloe tested the ropes. It'll hold, but only one at a time. You go first. I didn't argue this time. I carefully stepped onto the ropes, forcing myself not to look down at the churning water. I was almost at the other side when gunfire erupted behind me. I looked back to see Chloe exchanging fire with the mercenaries. She moved like a cat, darting between boulders, every shot finding its mark. One of the mercs started to circle around behind her. Chloe, behind you. I yelled. She turned, but it was too late. In that split second, I raised my pistol, aimed, and fired. The man dropped. I stood there stunned. I hit him? Chloe gave me a surprised look, then used the opportunity to make a run for the ropes. The mercenaries focused their fire on her position, bullets kicking up dirt all around her. Go, she yelled as she ran. I scrambled onto the far bank and turned to watch her sprint across the ropes under a hail of gunfire. Just as she was about to reach my side, a bullet hit one of the main ropes. Chloe fell. My heart stopped. I lunged for the cliff edge. She was dangling by one hand, holding onto the severed rope. Let go, she shouted. I can make the jump. I lay flat on the ground, stretching my arm out as far as it would go. I'll catch you. Chloe took a deep breath, let go of the rope, and leaped. Our hands met in midair, and I pulled her up with all my strength. The mercenaries on the other side were cursing, but the river was too wide and fast for them to cross easily. Chloe collapsed into my arms, laughing. Not bad, Mr. Thompson. Not bad at all. Just lucky, I said, holding her tight, my body still shaking from the adrenaline. No, that was skill, Chloe said, looking at me seriously. My dad used to say some people are born warriors. They just don't know it yet. I gave a weak smile. A little late to be discovering my hidden talents, don't you think? Better late than never, Chloe said, getting to her feet and pulling me up. Come on, we need to move before they find a way across. We followed the valley, Chloe consulting the map on her tablet. Good news, she said. There's an abandoned farm about 3 miles from here. My dad stashed another vehicle there. Just how many contingency plans did your dad have? I asked, amazed. Chloe smiled faintly. He always said you can never be too prepared. We picked up the pace and reached the farm before our pursuers. It was in ruins, but the barn was still standing. Inside, Chloe found a hidden trapdoor that led to an underground garage. A modified SUV was parked inside. Full tank of gas, 2 spare tires, and the back is loaded with weapons and supplies, Chloe said, checking the vehicle. This will get us to Alpha Station. I whistled. Your dad was a genius. Chloe's expression softened. Yeah, a crazy genius. We got in a car. As we drove away on a deserted country road, I asked, so what's at Alpha Station? What does Black Mamba want so badly? Chloe gripped the steering wheel. My father's last project, a prototype for an atmospheric regulator. In theory, it can reverse extreme climate events on a local scale. My eyes widened. You mean, it can end this fucking heat wave? If it works, yes, Chloe nodded. But the technology is unstable. It's risky. What kind of risk? It could trigger a climatic backlash. Make things even worse. Chloe's brow furrowed. My father was trying to find a way to stabilize it, but he ran out of time. I finished for her. Chloe nodded silently. Outside, the desolate landscape flew by. I realized then that we might be on a mission to save the world. And my wife, this crazy, violent, brilliant woman, was the key. Chloe, I said softly, we can do this. She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a fierce determination. We have to. We don't have a choice. The SUV rattled down the abandoned highway, the sun beating down on the cracked asphalt. I kept my eyes on the road, but my gaze flickered to the rearview mirror every few seconds. Turn right in 2 miles, Chloe said, her eyes glued to the offline map on her tablet. There's a service road that leads into the mountains. I nodded, my throat parched. The car's AC had given up hours ago. Chloe handed me our last half bottle of water. I shook my head. You have it. She stubbornly pressed the bottle to my lips. You're driving. You need it more. I took a small sip. The water was warm, but it felt like the sweetest thing I'd ever tasted. We turned onto a dirt road overgrown with weeds. The dead trees on either side looked like skeletal arms reaching for the sky. The road narrowed until it was almost completely consumed by the wilderness. Stop, Chloe said suddenly. There's something here. I hit the brakes. Chloe jumped out and pushed aside a large bush, revealing a rusted metal sign half buried in the dirt. I could just make out the words, military, and no trespassing. My father marked this place on his map, she said, her voice tense. It's an abandoned research base. We grabbed our gear and proceeded on foot. At the end of the dead forest was a collapsed concrete structure. Chloe knelt and pulled out a small scanner from her pack. There's a faint power signature, she said, narrowing her eyes. The underground levels might still be intact. It took us half an hour to clear the entrance, revealing a metal staircase leading down into darkness. The air that rose to meet us smelled of dust and old machinery. Chloe switched on her headlamp and led the way. I followed close behind, my pistol raised. The underground facility was vast. Corridors branched off into laboratories filled with dusty, silent equipment. On the walls, electronic displays flickered with corrupted data. Is this part of the Alpha Project? I whispered. Chloe didn't answer. She was standing before a heavy metal door labeled Command Center. She typed in a code, my birthday. The door hissed open. In the center of the room was a holographic projector. Chloe's hand trembled as she pressed the activation sequence. A blue light flared, and the holographic image of a middle-aged man materialized. I recognized his eyes immediately. They were just like Chloe's. If you are seeing this, then my worst fears have come to pass, the man's hologram said, his voice deep and resonant. I am Dr. Alan Hayes, lead scientist of the Alpha Project. Chloe bit her lip so hard I was afraid she would draw blood. The climate crisis is not a natural phenomenon, the hologram continued. An organization calling itself Gaia has seeded the stratosphere with nanites that are altering the atmospheric composition. I found the proof, and for that, they silenced me. The image flickered. Chloe, what I left for you is more than just survival skills. The core device at Alpha Station can reverse this process, but it requires an activation key. Your mother's name, followed by the star chart coordinates from the day you were born. Chloe stumbled back, as if she'd been physically struck. There isn't much time, the hologram said, its voice fading. Remember, some people want to watch the world burn. The image vanished. Chloe stood frozen in the dark. I gently put my arms around her, feeling her tremble. He didn't kill himself, she whispered, her voice raw. He was murdered. Before I could respond, alarms blared. Chloe snapped back to reality, lunging for the security console. The monitors flickered to life, showing 5 armed figures at the entrance. Black Mamba had found us. Ow! I felt a cold sweat on my back. They must have tracked the car. Chloe was already in combat mode, her fingers flying across the console. But this base has its own defenses. On the screen, the intruders were splitting up. Chloe initiated a command sequence, and a low hum echoed from deep within the base. Come on, she said, pulling me out of the command center. We ran through the maze-like corridors, Chloe moving with an eerie familiarity. She pushed open a door marked armory. Inside was enough firepower to equip a small army. Chloe began selecting weapons. They'll soon find out someone's been in the command center. We need to strike first. She tossed me a modified assault rifle and several magazines. She herself picked up a sniper rifle and a few smoke grenades. Then, to my horror, she dragged out a small cart loaded with C4 explosives. Are you going to blow up the entire base? My eyes widened. Chloe gave me that terrifyingly sweet smile of hers. Just a little surprise for our guests. We split up. Chloe went to set traps, while I was tasked with being the bait. The plan was insane, but we had no other choice. My earpiece crackled. In position, Chloe said. I took a deep breath, deliberately made a loud noise in the hallway, and then ducked into a laboratory. Soon, I heard footsteps. 2 mercenaries stormed in, guns raised. I held my breath, hiding behind a large centrifuge. They swept the room and were about to leave when Chloe's voice echoed from a ceiling speaker. Looking for me? The mercenary spun around, confused. I used their distraction to open fire, taking one down. The other rolled behind cover and returned fire, a bullet grazing my cheek. Leo, run, Chloe commanded. I bolted from the lab, the remaining merc hot on my heels. As I rounded a corner, Chloe pulled me into an alcove and hit a detonator. The entire corridor collapsed in a deafening explosion, burying our pursuer. 3 left, Chloe said, her voice as calm as if she were ordering takeout. We used the facility's cameras to track the remaining hostiles. They were more cautious now, moving with tactical precision. Chloe led me to a ventilation shaft. We can get behind them through here, she said, handing me a strange device. It's a sonic disruptor. It will temporarily jam their comms. I crawled into the narrow shaft. At the other end, an air vent looked down on the remaining 3 mercenaries. I activated the disruptor. They immediately began fumbling with their earpieces. That's when Chloe opened fire. The first shot was a clean headshot. The second merc turned just in time to take a bullet to the chest. The last one was a large, bald man with a snake tattoo. He quickly dove behind cover and yelled into his dead comms. Target acquired, requesting X. Chloe dropped from a ceiling panel, her knife slashing at his throat. He managed to dodge, but the blade still opened a deep gash on his shoulder. They engaged in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Chloe was faster, but the man was much stronger. I scrambled out of the vent to help, but the man pulled a pistol. In that split second, I lunged, tackling him and knocking his arm aside. The shot went wide. Chloe used the opening to deliver a powerful kick, sending the pistol flying. A second knife seemed to appear from her sleeve, and she lunged. The man dodged the fatal blow, but the knife still sank into his arm. He sneered, pulling out his own combat knife. Your old man put up a better fight than this. Chloe's eyes went dead cold. She moved with impossible speed, her blade tracing a single, clean line across his throat. Blood sprayed as the man stared in disbelief, then collapsed. He was my father, Chloe whispered to the dead man. Suddenly, the base began to shake violently. The self-destruct has been triggered, Chloe yelled, grabbing me. This way. We sprinted through the collapsing corridors. Just as we were nearing the exit, a huge slab of concrete fell from the ceiling. I pushed Chloe out of the way, but my leg was pinned. Without a word, Chloe hoisted the slab, her small frame straining with the effort. I scrambled free, and we burst out into the blinding sunlight just as the entire facility imploded behind us, sending up a massive cloud of dust and debris. We collapsed at the edge of the forest, gasping for air. Chloe checked my leg. It was badly bruised, but not broken. That man, he knew your father? I asked carefully. Chloe's hands stilled for a moment. Black Mamba. They must have been the ones who killed him. She looked up, her eyes blazing. We have to get to Alpha Station. We have to finish his work. Just as I was about to reply, a noise came from the nearby bushes. We both raised our weapons. A young man, his face covered in blood, stumbled out, his hands raised. Don't shoot. I'm not one of them. He was wearing a tattered lab coat and had a gunshot wound at his shoulder. Chloe's aim didn't waver. Who are you? Miles. Miles Chun. Alpha Project. Researcher. He gasped. They captured us. I'm the only one who escaped. Chloe narrowed her eyes. Prove it. Miles shakily pulled out an ID card and a small device from his pocket. The cryptographic kit. You need this to activate the regulator. Chloe examined the ID card, then stared at Miles for a long moment before finally lowering her weapon. Can you walk? We're going to Alpha Station. Miles nodded, then promptly passed out. Chloe and I looked at each other. This newcomer could be our salvation, or he could be a trap. But in the apocalypse, what choice did we have but to gamble? We patched up Miles's wound as best we could and carried him back to the car. As the sun set, we were on the road again, heading toward Alpha Station, toward the answers Chloe's father had left behind, and toward a hope that might just save the world. Chloe leaned against me, a rare look of exhaustion on her face. I kissed her forehead. Get some rest. I'll keep watch. She shook her head, her gaze fixed on the unconscious man in the back seat. Leo, remember this. In the world we live in now, hope is more dangerous than a bullet. 6 Miles was curled in the back of the SUV, a pained grimace on his face. The bandage on his shoulder was soaked through with fresh blood. Chloe stared at the tablet, her brow furrowed. Black Mamba has set up a sensor grid around Alpha Station. A direct approach is suicide. I glanced at Miles in the rearview mirror. Can we trust him? My father's hologram mentioned a cryptographic key, Chloe said, tapping the screen to pull up an encrypted file. Miles's ID card corresponds to this security clearance. She turned to me, her eyes sharp. But you should never fully trust anyone out here, including me. The sky opened up without warning, rain hammering down on the roof of the SUV. I flicked on the wipers, but visibility was near zero. Chloe suddenly grabbed my wrist. Stop, there's a building on the right. Through the curtain of rain, I could just make out a steeple. It was a collapsed country church. We'll wait out the storm here, Chloe said, checking the safety on her pistol. I'll go in first. She kicked open the rotten door and was swallowed by the darkness. A few minutes later, a faint candlelight flickered from within. Clear. Get Miles inside. I carried Miles into the church. Chloe had already fashioned a makeshift bed out of pews and was cutting away his bandage. The wound was infected. Worse than I thought, she said, pulling antibiotics from her med kit. And there's this. She used a pair of tweezers to pull a tiny metal fleck from the wound. A tracking chip. Standard issue for Black Mamba. My blood ran cold. They've been tracking him this whole time. The chip has a limited range, Chloe said, dropping it into the holy water font. The storm is scrambling the signal, so we're safe for now. She looked up. Leo, you don't look so good. I realized then that I was shivering, my vision tunneling. Chloe's cool hand on my forehead confirmed it. Damn it, you have a fever. The world swam. I felt myself being pushed down onto a pew. Chloe was pulling off my wet shirt. In the candlelight, her expression was grim. When she dabbed my chest with alcohol, I hissed in pain. Stop trying to be a hero, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Carrying him all that way. Did you think you were Superman? I tried to make a joke, but it came out as a bloody cough. The color drained from Chloe's face. Pulmonary edema, a complication from a heat stroke. She forced a pill into my mouth. I grabbed her wrist. If I don't make it. Shut up, she snapped, pressing my hand to her cheek. You die, and I'll burn the whole damn world down as your funeral pyre. The storm raged. I watched Chloe tend to Miles, then come back to check on me. Her silhouette moving in the candlelight reminded me of our wedding day, how she bustled around, making sure everyone was happy. Chloe, I whispered. She was instantly by my side. Tell me something about you, to keep me awake. She was silent for a long moment. A week before he died, she finally said, her voice barely audible over the rain, my father sent me a letter. He told me if anything happened to him, to get a key to a safe deposit box. Inside was the location of Alpha Station, and this. She pulled a small metal case from an inner pocket. His life's work, a core algorithm that can only be unlocked by my biometrics. She continued her work, her movements automatic. After the funeral, I checked his search history. The last thing he looked up was acute polonium poisoning symptoms. They made it look like a suicide. A flash of lightning illuminated her face, revealing the tears streaming down her cheeks. I struggled to sit up and pulled her into a hug. For a moment, she was stiff, then she collapsed against me, clutching my shirt. He knew he was in danger. Why didn't he leave me a note? Why? I held her until she was quiet again. She suddenly pulled the combat knife from her boot. In a hidden compartment in the sheath was our wedding photo. On the back, in her elegant handwriting, were the words, "Till death do us part." So cheesy, she said, roughly wiping her eyes and putting the photo away. You tell anyone about this, and I'll castrate you. I coughed out a laugh, and my eyes fell on a tattered wedding dress hanging on a cross. Chloe followed my gaze, feeling nostalgic. She actually went over, tore off a relatively clean piece of the fabric, and used it to bandage my wound. The white silk quickly turned red. Leo Thompson, she said, her voice mimicking the wedding officiant, in sickness and in health. Till death do us part. I finished, kissing her palm. And not even then. From the corner, Miles applauded weakly. That was beautiful, but I think I'm dying over here. Chloe rolled her eyes, but immediately went to check on him. The rain finally stopped near dawn. Every time I woke up, I saw Chloe standing guard by the window, rifle in hand. The last time I opened my eyes, I saw she had finally succumbed to exhaustion, asleep in a chair, her hand still on her weapon. After the storm, we pressed on. Chloe had a new route planned. There's an abandoned weather station 15 miles southwest of here. My father stashed some backup equipment there. On the way, we passed a small refugee camp. A dozen starving people sat around a dead fire. A little girl stared at our SUV, clutching a worn-out doll. I slowed down, but Chloe put a hand on my arm. We only have enough for the three of us. Just a little water. And then what? They follow us. We reveal our position. Chloe's voice was cold. This isn't a movie, Leo. I drove on, the image of the little girl shrinking in the rearview mirror. At the next intersection, I made a sharp turn and stopped the car. 5 minutes, I said, grabbing 2 bottles of water and a pack of energy bars. That's all. Chloe didn't stop me, but I saw her chamber a round in her pistol. I ran back, left the supplies, and ran back to the car without looking back. As I buckled my seatbelt, Chloe leaned over and bit my lip hard. Don't ever do that again, she said, licking the drop of blood from my mouth, her eyes a mix of fury and affection. That afternoon, we spotted the weather station's radar tower. Chloe had us hide outside the perimeter fence. Tire tracks. Fresh. She went to scout ahead. When she returned, her face was grim. For hostiles. Not Black Mamba, but well-equipped. Suddenly, Miles cried out, clutching his shoulder. The chip. It's burning. They've activated it. Chloe cursed and tore away his bandage. A faint red light was blinking under his skin. She didn't hesitate. Hold still. Without anesthetic, she sliced the wound open and pulled out the glowing chip. Just as she was about to destroy it, a shout came from the station. The signal is coming from outside the fence. Gunfire erupted. Chloe shoved the chip into the mouth of a passing lizard and sent it scurrying in the opposite direction. Run. Split up. Meet at the rendezvous point. I helped Miles into the woods, bullets whizzing past us. He stumbled and fell, a fresh torrent of blood pouring from his wound. Leave me, he gasped. The password. It's Sylvia 0715. Chloe's mother's name and birthday. I hauled him onto my back. Shut up and save your energy. We hid in a cave as night fell. Miles was losing a lot of blood. Just as I was starting to lose hope, a figure appeared at the mouth of the cave. It was Chloe. Move, she said, kneeling beside Miles. She was holding a silver candlestick from a church and the car battery. She stripped some wires with a knife. As lightning flashed, she pressed the makeshift device to his chest. Clear. Miles's body convulsed. The smell of burning flesh filled the air, but the bleeding had stopped. Improvised cauterization, Chloe said, wiping sweat from her brow. Let's just hope I didn't stop his heart. I looked at her burned fingers and thought about our first date, how she put a Band-Aid on a small burn and said it was nothing. Later that night, with Miles stable, Chloe finally fell asleep, her head on my shoulder. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, there was a strange peace. We were the last 3 people on Earth, adrift on a sea of chaos, heading for a place that held either salvation or a damnation worse than we could imagine. The massive metal doors of Alpha Station hissed open, revealing a cavernous space bathed in a cool, blue light. The entire mountain had been hollowed out to house a gigantic, spherical device made of countless rotating rings, a mechanical planet hanging in the void. The atmospheric regulator prototype, Chloe whispered, her voice filled with awe. It's bigger than my father described. Miles stumbled in behind us, his shoulder bleeding again. He stared at the device. That's not a regulator. It's a weather weapon. Red warning lights began to flash. Chloe lunged for a control panel, pulling up security footage. 24 Black Mamba mercenaries were breaching the outer perimeter. Leading them was a woman in a lab coat, holding a cryptographic key identical to Miles's. Miles! Chloe's gun was at his temple in an instant. You led them here. No, the chip is gone, he pleaded, pointing at the woman on the screen. That's my sister, Evelyn. She's being forced to work for them. Chloe's knife was at his throat. I grabbed her arm. Activate the defense systems first. She typed in a secondary password. A section of the wall slid open, revealing an armory. She tossed me a pulse rifle and grabbed a grenade launcher for herself. Hold the entrance. I need 10 minutes to bring the main system online. Miles and I raced to the corridor. He suddenly pulled me back toward the command center. There's something on the main console you need to see. Etched into the glass panel next to the password entry was a small inscription. Initiate upon the convergence of the twin moons. In the corner, a holographic log from Chloe's father was playing on a loop. The nanites, seeded by Gaia, absorb solar radiation. They intend to create a runaway greenhouse effect. Alpha Station can reverse the process, but requires a living host, a DNA bond to the operator. The log switched to a live feed of secret launch sites around the globe, firing rockets into the atmosphere. They're expanding the effect. Miles said, his face pale. This isn't an apocalypse. It's a man-made climate war. An explosion rocked the corridor. Leo, get to the main console. Chloe yelled over the comms. The console in front of her was now displaying a biometric interface with a stark warning. DNA bond is irreversible. Her finger hovered over the confirmation button. A bond means the operator will be consumed when the device overloads. I understood her hesitation and grabbed her hand. There has to be another way. There's no time. She shoved me away and pressed the button. A needle shot out from the console, piercing her wrist. A robotic voice echoed through the station. Operator Chloe Hayes bonded. System activation initiated. She turned and shoved the cryptographic key into my hands. Go to the weather chamber. Activate the auxiliary program. The password is the star chart coordinates my father left me. She then pushed a set of keys into my other hand. If this doesn't work, there's an armored car in the sub-level garage. I pulled her into a desperate hug. We leave together. Chloe kissed me. A fierce, final kiss that tasted of blood and desperation. Idiot, she smiled her signature, dangerous smile. I haven't heard you say I do yet. The mercenaries were at the door. Miles suddenly sprinted to a secondary console. I can bypass the DNA bond. Give me 3 minutes. Why should I trust you? Chloe's gun was aimed at his head. Because they turned my other sister into a climate experiment. Miles ripped open his collar, revealing a barcode tattooed below his clavicle. Black Mamba implanted us with control chips. I escaped to find a way to reverse what they did to her. From outside the door, the woman in the lab coat, Evelyn, shouted, Miles, I know you're in there. Give me the Alpha Core, and I'll give you the antidote for Una. Miles's fingers flew across the keyboard. Chloe's gun remained trained on him, but she looked at me. Take him to the weather chamber. I'll hold him off. No, Leo, she said, her voice suddenly gentle. She touched the photo in my chest pocket. Remember what I said in the church, till death do us part. It's not a noun, it's a verb. Another explosion shook the station. I gritted my teeth, grabbed Miles, and ran. As I looked back, I saw Chloe, grenade launcher on her shoulder, silhouetted against the flashing red lights, her hair like fire. The weather chamber required a retinal scan, which Miles bypassed. Inside, a central column displayed a holographic model of the Earth. I entered the coordinates Chloe gave me, but the system flashed an error. Twin moon convergence condition not met. It's a celestial event. Miles pointed to a skylight. It won't happen for another 2 days. We were out of time. The station's power wouldn't last that long. There's a way to force it, Miles said, his hands flying over a control panel, but it means overloading the core reactor. The monitor flickered to an image of Chloe, trapped in the command center. Evelyn and 5 mercenaries had breached the room. Dr. Hayes' daughter. Evelyn sneered, holding up a syringe. Your DNA will be perfect to unlock the final protocols. Chloe, backed against the console, bleeding from a cut on her lip, just laughed. You want my DNA? She sliced her own palm open with her knife and smeared the blood across the console. Come and get it, you bitch. The entire station shuddered. The robotic voice announced. Emergency protocol initiated. Self-destruct sequence activated. T-minus 10 minutes. You're insane, Evelyn shrieked. This will detonate the regulator. Exactly, Chloe said, wiping her mouth. A party for all of us in hell. Miles and I raced back. We took out 3 mercs in the hallway. I was shocked that I could even hit them. Miles used a scavenge grenade to blow open the final door. The command center was a war zone. Chloe was pinned down, a gunshot wound in her left shoulder. Evelyn was clutching her stomach, hit by a stray bullet. The two remaining mercs were reloading. The moment I entered, Chloe's eyes lit up. "You're late for your own wedding, honey." Miles lunged at his sister. "Where is Yuna?" he screamed. Evelyn laughed maniacally, plunging the syringe into his neck. "She is one with the Gaia now," she cackled. Chloe shot the last two mercenaries. I ran to her side and saw that the bullet had gone through her lung. She was breathing in bloody gasps. From her pocket, she pulled out 2 rings, our wedding rings, which I thought had been lost. Was saving these for when the world wasn't ending. She coughed, forcing the men's ring onto my finger. "Wanna make it official?" I slid the women's ring on her finger, my voice choked with tears. "Chloe Hayes, will you marry this useless husband of yours, even if we only have 10 minutes left?" "I do." She smiled, coughing up more blood. "And I'm booking you for the next life, too." Miles screamed. His sister was retreating toward the ceiling, where a helicopter was lowering a rope. "The Alpha Core is in meltdown. Yuna will be the goddess of the new world," she cackled. Chloe's shot hit her in the leg, but she managed to grab the rope. Miles crawled toward me, pressing a data chip into my hand. "The climate model. You can use it to track my sister." The self-destruct countdown hit 5 minutes. Chloe pointed a shaky finger toward a side door. "The garage. Go." I supported Chloe with one arm and dragged Miles with the other. The regulator core was melting down behind us, a wave of incandescent heat chasing us down the corridor. We had just fired up the armored car when the first explosion brought the ceiling down. I floored it, smashing through the garage door. In the rearview mirror, Alpha Station imploded, the great mechanical planet at its heart disintegrating in a flash of light. As we careened down the mountain, Miles tended to our wounds. Chloe leaned against me, her fingers laced with mine. In the sky, 2 moons were slowly moving toward each other. "Look," she whispered. "The twin moons are converging." I kissed her forehead. "Next time, we pick a better wedding day." The armored car sped through the burning night. Miles suddenly pointed to the tablet. "Yuna's signal. She's moving toward the coast." Chloe, holding my hand, looked at me. "Honeymoon at the beach." I squeezed her hand, feeling the cold metal of her ring. This crazy woman just blew up the world, and now she wants a vacation. "Yes, my love." The armored car tore across the scorched earth. Behind us, from the ruins of Alpha Station, a strange blue beam of light shot into the sky toward the converging moons. The coastline shimmered in the heat, the rusted offshore drilling platform ahead of us looking like a mirage. The bullet wound in my side was a constant, burning agony. "Anomalous tide," Miles said from the back, staring at his tablet. "The twin moon's gravity is pulling the water out." Chloe slid out from under the armored car, covered in grease. She'd managed to rig the silver candlestick from the church into a makeshift EMP weapon. "The platform support structure extends to the seabed," she said, pointing. "When the tide goes out far enough, it'll reveal an entrance." I reached to wipe a smudge of oil from her cheek, but she caught my wrist, her eyes locking on my pale lips. "2 more hours. Hold on. Plenty of time for you to bury me," I joked, which triggered a bloody cough. She pulled me into a brutal kiss that tasted of iron and gasoline. "My tombstone will read, 'Wife of Leo Thompson,' so you damn well better live." At sunset, the sea had retreated hundreds of yards, revealing a massive, barnacle-encrusted tunnel. As Chloe was disabling the lock, I noticed the wedding ring on her finger was glowing with a faint blue light. The airlock door had barely opened when gunfire erupted. I shoved Chloe down, a searing pain tearing through my abdomen. In the darkness, I heard Miles cry out, then a loud crash and the hiss of water. When the emergency lights flickered on, Chloe was standing waist-deep in flooding seawater, holding a length of rebar like a spear. Her shoulder was bleeding, but she seemed oblivious. Impaled on the other end of the rebar was one of our attackers. "That's 3, she said softly, pulling the makeshift spear free and stalking her next target. When the last man was dead, the water around her was pink. She knelt beside me, her bloody wedding ring pressing against my lips as she examined my wound. "You die, I'll turn this whole ocean red. I promise." We swam deeper into the base. The walls pulsed with a blue, biological light. At the end of the tunnel was a transparent chamber. Inside, a woman was floating. Yuna. Hundreds of similar pods were arrayed on the seafloor, each containing a human host for the Nanites. Yuna's eyes opened, and her voice filled our minds. Blek Mamba Lit. I wasn't their prisoner. I was their solution. She had been a climate scientist who discovered Gaia's plan. When she realized the Nanites were out of control, she designed a way to contain them within living hosts, a process that could only be reversed by a blood relative. The twin moons will awaken the Nanites. Her thoughts washed over us. Someone must carry them back into space. The ring is the key. The base began to break apart. As Yuna's pod opened, the Nanites swirled around her like a silver cape. Go! To the top of the ruins. We surfaced to a breathtaking sight. The receding ocean had uncovered an ancient, pyramid-like structure. The twin moons hung directly overhead, their light focused on the pyramid's apex. My father studied this, Chloe whispered, clutching her glowing ring. He said it was built by the survivors of the last apocalypse. We climbed to the top, where a central indentation perfectly matched her ring. Miles suddenly snatched it. It needs a neural interface to activate. I'll do it. No. Chloe's gun was aimed at his head. That's my husband's ring. I touched her arm. Chloe, look. A blue storm of Nanites was gathering over the ocean. In the distance, Black Mamba's fleet was approaching. At the eye of the storm, Yuna was a figure of light, her arms outstretched as if to embrace the world's suffering. Chloe lowered her gun. Then she grabbed Miles and shoved another ring into his hand. Use this one. It's a backup. Seeing my shocked expression, she shrugged. I melted down the candlestick from the church. So what? Miles placed both rings into the console. As neural probes pierced his wrists, he screamed, Yuna, I can see her. She's redirecting the Nanites' trajectory. The blue storm swirled, and at its center, Yuna's form began to dissolve, the Nanites streaming toward the moonlight like a river of stars. Just as she was about to vanish, Chloe jammed a device into the console, the DNA sampler from Alpha Station, containing a mix of her genes and mine. What are you doing? I yelled. She gave me her classic, terrifying smile. The system defaults to the most recently uploaded DNA. Now, if we die together. The pyramid shuddered. A stream of blue light broke from the main particle stream and enveloped us. There was no pain, only a feeling of warmth. In a daze, I saw Chloe's father standing in the light. He placed a hand on her head, and though his lips didn't move, I heard his voice. The key was never the ring. It was love. The last world died of selfishness. Only a selfless love can restart the cycle. When the first rays of dawn hit the ocean, the storm was gone. The sea was calm, reflecting the twin moons, now drifting apart. Miles knelt at the edge of the pyramid, holding a single lock of his sister's hair. Chloe leaned against me, exhausted but peaceful. Look, she said, pointing to the horizon. Dark clouds were gathering. A single drop of rain fell on her eyelash, then another and another. It was finally raining,